everybody. Welcome to 28 Day Replay with LaShay. I really just wanted to pop in today to encourage those who may have lost a loved one, this year or in recent years, especially during the holiday season. I wanted to just pop in and encourage you that that to still love and to allow others to love on you in this season. And I say that because today I was trying to decorate for Christmas, or at least pull some things out and get started and try to get into Christmas cheer. And I got so far, and then I just had like a whole meltdown because I really miss my mom. Really, I miss my friend, So after this meltdown, and I'm still having my moments, what I realized is like the same love that can hurt you is the same love that can keep you. It's like I'm in all of this pain and I'm crying because I really miss my mom. I really miss my friend. And there are days where, in that process, I want to separate from people. I want to maybe not connect with people, not connect. So if something happens to someone else, I wouldn't feel this type of pain, this weight, this this emotional roller coaster that just like takes you so high and so low in like a moment of time. And if you're in this process and you know what I mean, and if you don't understand that, then be grateful that you don't understand that. But what I want to encourage us, those who are grieving and really still just trying to make sense of that loss, I want to encourage you that the same love that can hurt you is the same love that can keep you. And so I want to maybe encourage us to still love on others and allow others to love on us, to make those connections that are genuine and that are really intimate and that are not just superficial, but that are deep and intertwined. Because I do think that that's, what kind of carries you through life, and I think about, the relationship with my mom, like, there's so many great moments that I can remember. And then that's the hard part as well. It's like, dang, now we don't get to create, more great moments, like I really, really miss my friend right now. So, another thing is like going through this process for me. I can't, I'm not speaking in general for anyone else because, I've read some books, but I'm no expert on grieving. But, I get angry, like sometimes I'm so angry. And I know that's just part of acceptance. That's a part of the whole, stages of grief. And I get that. And sometimes I'm angry at her because she's gone. And then sometimes I'm angry at God because she's gone. And so, sometimes I'm angry at doctors. Sometimes I'm angry at myself. Sometimes I'm just angry. But I know that that's just a way of not really wanting to feel the grief, the sadness, and that emotion, because it just seems, anger seems so much easier than than sadness. That's crazy, right? That's not crazy. It just is what it is. So even in that though, like if you don't have a relationship, seeing it as it is Christmas, the Christmas season, if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, I still would love to encourage you in that, because even though I can get so angry at God, in a moment's time, in the next moment, He's also my anchor and who I cry out to, and He's my hope of glory. It's the hope that I have that I'll see her again on the other side. It's the hope that I have that I can rest in His promises and in the goodness of the Lord. So if you don't know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, or if you are struggling with your faith, I want to encourage you that, hey, that's okay. I want to encourage you to take that to the throne. Cast the whole of your cares upon him, because he does care for you and for us. And so I want to encourage maybe even just myself in that moment. I can play this back and I can remember, like, hey, you still have an anchor. You still have some hope. You still have a friend. You still have a comforter. And I just want to encourage us that the same love that can hurt us is also the same love that can keep us. It's those bonds, it's those relationships that can help us sail through, the hard times. That can help us create the moments, the memories that we'll remember, from the good times, that'll help anchor us and keep us maybe sane and keep us grounded in the hard times. So I just want to encourage someone who might be going through and grieving in this season to just hang on and to pray and express your grief, in any healthy way that you can. That's not a danger to yourself or others. Grieving is a process for everybody, and everybody goes through that process differently. But I would encourage myself, and I would encourage others to don't completely shut people out, or to not, or love out, because you're in such great pain right now in this season. God bless you and keep you. Make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord God lift his countenance upon you and give you his peace in this season and always. God bless. Hi guys, welcome back to 28 Day Replay with LaShay. I wanted to pop in today and just share some tidbits that I got off of Nic Cannon's talk show earlier today. Right now, and you may have seen it in the news, in the media, that Nic Cannon lost his 5-month-old son, Zen, to hydrocephalitis or something like that, like a brain tumor. He was 5 months old, and he recently just died. And so Nic was on his show today, and he was talking about his grieving process. And I just I wanted to share some of the tidbits. He had 2 guest speakers on there as well. His counselor that he sees, Dr. Berman, I believe, and a guy named David Kessler, who wrote this book, Finding Meaning, which is about after the 6 stages of grief and moving on and how you process it. And I just wanted to pop in and share the tidbits that I had learned from watching the show today, in hopes that it'll help someone else in the process, that you might find these resources or that interview helpful with your grieving process. And then I just also want to brag on God, because just Monday I made a video encouraging myself and others to still allow love in this in this process and in the season, if you're in the season of grieving, to still allow others kind of in, because my thing is, the love that can hurt you is the same love that can keep you, right? And so I just want to brag on God, because isn't that just like him to meet my needs with all sufficiency, once again, because I've been having these meltdowns pretty frequently here in the last few weeks, just as it gets closer to the Christmas holiday. And so I was actually my husband has a diesel repair business, and so I was actually up at the shop today when I caught Nic's show. And normally I wouldn't be up there on a Wednesday, but because of my schedule's just a little off this week, and so because of that, I actually ended up in the office today, when I typically wouldn't go until tomorrow and Friday, and just in time to turn on the TV and to see Nic's show, Nic Cannon's show. And so I just want to brag on God, because he meets my needs with all sufficiency, if you heard the tidbit on Monday, you heard me say that I'm angry. You know, like some days I'm angry at God, and some days I'm angry at myself, and some days I'm angry at my mama, and you know. But there are some things that this David Kessler guy said during his interview or session with Nic on Nic's show today that really, you know, that I connected with, and that helped me to, you know, be okay with processing these emotions. And so I just thought that I would share a quick share some of the tidbits that they mentioned on the show, and hopefully you'll go back. I'll try to add in the comments below. I'll try to add in the link to the show, or like to the book that you can, you know, maybe read or listen to on Audible, that maybe it'll help you in this process. So takeaway number one. One thing Nic Cannon said was, you can't heal until you feel. And that one really just like tugged at my heart, because, you know, full transparency, after my mom's services, like I kind of refused for a minute to deal with it. Like it was too much. Like it was so heavy. Like I was always on the floor, or like just having these meltdowns, like anywhere and everywhere. Like in a minute my knees would buckle just from the grief and from the sheer emotions. And so I started trying to numb that with a little medical marijuana. Right. And I, you know, I needed it to, I think, to calm my anxiety is what I'll say. But one day, like, and I thought for a minute, I thought, like, you know, when you're like, if you're high, you can't cry, you know. But then one day I was like, I was in my zone, and then I was still crying. And so it was just this really messed up experience of like toggling in between this funky headspace. And then that's when I decided, you know, hey, let's just allow these emotions in. Let's just allow it and process it, and do that in a healthier way. And so that you can't heal until you feel, that really spoke to me. Another thing that the lady, Dr. Berman, I believe it's her name, she also lost a child. She lost her son. He was 16 years old, and he died about 10 months ago this year. And so she's processing, you know, and in her grieving process as well. And so she just mentioned also losing her mom. Her mom had breast cancer, and so she also briefly spoke on that. So if, you know, that's something you identify with, you know, she might have some takeaways, or something she says might be a takeaway for you to really help you, you know, process your emotions and to process your grief, and to, you know, move a little bit further in your grieving process. And it's definitely a process. It's a journey. You know, it's not something that you're just gonna one day be over. You know, it's just something that we have to journey through. But one thing she said, that unexpressed grief is what she thought maybe was one of the, because she also ended up with breast cancer in the same breast that her mom had cancer in. And so she was like, that unexpressed grief, you know. And she thinks that part of this unexpressed grief is, what she said was, you have to allow the energy to pass through in order to avoid that energy becoming illness or psychosomatic conditions in our body. And I completely believe that. Like, you know, I'm an advocate for getting to the root cause of what's ailing you, and allowing energy to channel and to flow. And so my goal is to eventually, you know, put a little bit more about that on my site as well. But that was just like some more confirmation for me, you know, to just to grieve in a healthy way, because I don't want this unexpressed grief to now eventually down the line cause conditions in my body. And already I can tell, like, there are some days and my stomach's just in knots from the anxiety, and when I pay attention to that, like I can know, like right now my mama's car is in the driveway, and every time I pull in, like I see her car, and it just triggers me, and it's like, oh, she should be here, and she's not. And so I am trying to be more aware of those triggers, and I suppress that. Like, I'll try to stuff those tears back in, or I'll just probably just, if I'm not aware, if I'm just too busy trying to use music or whatever to just keep my mind busy, or do things keep my mind busy, and not really pay attention to my signals and my clues, then I miss it, but today I realized that it's a real big trigger for me, and I felt it in my stomach, like immediately. I felt the tension, I felt the knot, I felt the anxiety, and I've really been dealing with, it impacts my digestion and all of that. So maybe that's you, and maybe it's just a note to you to say, hey, pay attention to maybe what triggers you, and see how you're holding maybe that unexpressed grief in your body as well. She says another thing that Dr. Berman said was to take time to let the pain, the grief out. Like, just take the time, take the moment. I had a whole meltdown one day. Well, I've had several meltdowns, right? Publicly, like just I can laugh at it now. It's funny in the moment, but in the middle of a Home Depot, like recently, like after the services, and being back home, being back here, and trying to just get out and find something to do, get out of the house. But I walked in a Home Depot and all but hit the floor just from grief, because that was just one of our things too. My mom and I, we went a lot of places together. We did a lot of stuff together. And I'm laughing to kind of keep from crying, as you can tell. But, she says, a healthy way of coping is to just take the time and to allow the expression and to let the pain out. So maybe that tidbit is for you, to let the pain out. Let's see what else we have here. My notes, I wrote them down. This guy, David Kessler is his name. He wrote a book, and it's called Finding Meaning. I think the 6th stage of grief, something like that. I'll put the exact thing in the description below with a link so you guys can get to it. But one of the key things that he said was that grief, that guilt is a companion to grief. And I thought, like, wow, that was a good one. Nic Cannon really spoke about, the guilt of maybe not being as present or as available to his children. He spoke from that angle. But the guy, David Kessler, he said that the guilt is actually like a coping mechanism for your mind. It's like a safety thing that your mind will do to try to, I guess, kind of help you cope, keep you safe, so that was an interesting tidbit that he shared. And it is in his book. And so Nick also asked those two. He asked Dr. Berman and Mr. Kessler. He said, what are some steps? How can we cope through this process? How can we get through it? What are some tips or some tidbits they would offer? And they both have their grieving process, because David Kessler, he lost his son unexpectedly as well. I think his son was like 21 maybe, but I don't know how old he was. Maybe that's her son and I'm getting it confused. But his youngest son, whose name is also David, he died unexpectedly. And so this was like 5 years ago for him. But, there's no time limit on grief. Like, my dad died many, many moons ago, and there are still days where that bops me, upside of my head or tugs at my heart like it was just like yesterday, But anyways, David Kessler, he lost his son unexpectedly. So, that's where he started to say, hey, it's not just enough to grieve, but like, now what kind of a thing. And that's where the book came about, where he needed to find meaning. So not meaning, not as in like there's meaning behind the person dying or that person's death, but like, what do we, he said, what do I do after this horrible event? Like, what do I do with this life? What message do I carry on, you know? And that's what I think the whole scope of his book is about, is you continuing to go along in your journey and to find meaning in that, and to, you know, what light are you going to bring to the world? What gifts are you still going to offer? How can this grieving process, you know, make you better and not bitter, so to speak? One thing that I think Kessler said was that grief doesn't get smaller. He's like, you know, the grief is like equivalent to like the love we have for, you know, the person or for what we lost. And it's like, you don't want the grief to go away because you don't want that love to go away. Basically, he's like, the grief is like us saying, and this really spoke to me because he was like, it's like us saying that we don't get to express that love anymore. And that's where that heaviness, you know, kind of comes from. It's like, he says, but we have to become bigger because grief doesn't get smaller. So how do you grow around the grief? And that was like an aha moment for me. Then I was like, okay. But that really spoke to me because I'm like, that's really what I'm saying when I say, you know, hey, I'm angry. I'm like, really, I'm just really sad that I don't get to, you know, create more memories right now with my mom. So that, maybe that speaks to you as well, and maybe we can find healthier ways to continue to express that love, even if it's not sharing it with the person that we lost, you know. What else? Anger. Oh yeah. So he was like, anger is pain's bodyguard. That's what David Kessler said. And he just says that we could use this grief, this process, to transform us, you know, and to find meaning and purpose. So I'll list those resources below. If you have time, I would really encourage you to maybe go back and view that interview, because, you know, I'm just summarizing. So, you know, there might be some things that I missed because I was just having my moments and, you know, processing in the midst of watching the interview. But I think that maybe it was really helpful for me. So perhaps it'll be really helpful for you as well. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to my rants. And again, I'm praying for you and with you. Godspeed. Take care. Talk to you later.